that is core to this, is being able to take the data that Amazon has with customer reviews, keyword trends, and innovating at scale, bringing that data as close to the customer as possible and launching new products consistently. And to do so with an agility that like CPG just can't.
You're listening to Retail Remix, your inside access to candid conversations with the people shaping retail's future. Here's your host, Alicia Esposito.
Marketplaces have been a huge trend over the past few years. We're seeing retailers start their own marketplaces and retail media networks, and we're seeing more brands, even the really well-known, established, and heritage ones, build out their marketplace strategies. We knew this was such a critical topic that we decided to have a dedicated track on marketplaces at our Retail Innovation Conference and Expo this past May. And I have to say, the response was incredible. Every session had a packed crowd, and there were executives from various backgrounds, job functions, areas of expertise, and they all came together because they were hungry to understand where this space was, where it was heading, and most of all, how they could get a piece of the pie. One of my favorite sessions, I think, from the track was this one that we're running for you today as a very special episode of the podcast. And it is a panel featuring different aggregators. We've been keeping a close eye on this space, especially our e-commerce editor, Nicole, who is moderating the session, because they are growing really quickly. They have a significant impact on where the marketplace space is heading. And they all have a very distinct approach to identifying high growth brands, building those brands out, and turning them into very viable bigger businesses that are successful on marketplaces. So with that, if you're interested in learning more about this space, this episode is perfect for you because we have executives from Aggregators, Elevate Brands, and Perch, possibly the top three, if not representing the top 5 of the biggest aggregators out there. So listen in because they all provide very unique perspectives around like how they're dissecting the marketplace space, identifying new opportunities, and even insights on where they think this space is heading.
Welcome to the last session of the day in the Marketplaces track of the IRCE conference. I'm really excited for this one. It's a hot space, and we have 3 great executives to talk to us now about the Amazon aggregator space. I'm Nicole Silberstein. I am the e-commerce editor at Retail Touchpoints. Before we get started, I'd love to kind of know how many people in the room are sellers on Amazon. Okay, so we have a good contingent of sellers here with us today, which is great. It's been fascinating to watch this space develop over the last couple of years as so many different organizations have emerged, how they're differentiating, most of all, how they're using those points of differentiation to find the right brands for their portfolios. Today, we get to go behind the curtain with 3 executives from 3 different aggregators, and we'll get their take on the fast-evolving marketplace space, how they go about identifying and analyzing their acquisition targets and their predictions for the future, which will be particularly interesting given some of the developments in recent weeks. So please join me in welcoming Rob Bell, Chief Growth Officer of Elevate Brands, Nathan Saminsky, Marketing and Advertising Manager at Perch, and Christine Kui, VP of Brand Management for Aggregators. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just gonna hop on up here. So guys, I wanna start by letting you each kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself and also your company, what differentiates you, what your kind of niche is in the aggregator space. Do you wanna kick us off, Christine?
Yes, Aggregators was founded in 2020 by 2 ex-Amazonians who have experiences as operators for brands, growing brands in the marketplace space from the ground up to building software that supports Amazon sellers. I have a merchant background myself. I started my career as a planner at Target in private label kids apparel. My most recent role before Aggregators was as an omni-channel buyer for Walmart and Walmart.com for $1 billion P&L, the largest desk in that category in the world. And then I met Ronick and Wiley, and I joined the Aggregator team in 2020, and we were a team of 3, and now it's been about 2 years that I've been there. We're a team of over 150 in the US with over $400 million of revenue under management. In terms of what differentiates us from other aggregators, it's really the background of our buyers, right? We pride ourselves in our operational expertise, being true merchants, growing these brands from kind of brand sources to product sources to true brand sources, and really adding differentiated value to the customer and bringing these brands from just being, Amazon native to across multiple channels.
And I'm Nathan Smitsky. I'm marketing and advertising manager at Perch. I joined about a year and a half ago, back when there were far fewer aggregators. And my background is kind of in PR and marketing. And I had actually been working for a venture capital firm, had seen an investment thesis in the space, and just knew I had to kind of join the space. But really what differentiates Perch, I would say, is on the supply chain. Our CEO and our COO really built Wayfair's large parcel delivery network, taking large parcel deliveries down from 27 days to 2, and really trying to replicate kind of the scale savings that you can see on the supply chain. So pretty proud. We actually just inked kind of a year-long container deal with some big carriers that is going to see like savings of 35 to 40% per container, which is huge for us, especially right now, as all of you, I'm sure, have been feeling the pain of container costs going up. So, yep.
Rob?
Yeah, hi, Rob Bell, Chief Growth Officer of Elevate Brands. I'm from Australia originally, but based in Texas, Austin. My background is investment banking and physical commodities trading. Elevate itself, we actually started as a regular seller in 2016, so I think that's a big differentiating factor. We had an existing, business on Amazon before we moved into the brand aggregation space. So I think that kind of operating pedigree is carried through to the business today. We're not the biggest in the space. We've been very disciplined in our approach, and certainly, trying to create a sustainable and scalable operating platform.
Great. Well, given that we have so many sellers in the room today, I'd love to start by just hearing a little bit more about how you identify the brands that you're going to acquire, keeping in mind, of course, that the pace of acquisition does seem to be slowing down a little bit. But what is your litmus for a brand worth acquiring, and how can any of the sellers in the room today who may be hoping to eventually exit, what can they do to make an acquisition-ready business? You want to kick us off with that one, Rob?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I think our kind of acquisition criteria has definitely evolved over time as our business has matured. I think there's probably 3 things that we think about. The first is just general criteria. So things like size, like we are looking for businesses that are doing at least 8 figures in revenue, between 10 and 100 million in revenue. That doesn't mean we can't acquire a smaller business, but that's kind of the size threshold we're looking at today. Obviously, top of SEO, high quality products, defensible products. I think what's very important for us at the moment is the last 5 deals we've done, we actually kept the teams on board, and they all kind of joined Elevate. So that's quite an important element for us now going forward. We did start as a seller, but it's very difficult to replicate the special sauce which the entrepreneurial owner had in that business. And so certainly, we like to partner with sellers and entrepreneurs. So that's another element from a criteria perspective. Category-wise, when we started, we were very broad on the categories that we were focused on. But as we've done more and more M&A, we've got 32 brands now. We are kind of focused on a few verticals where more of those deals have landed. So sports and outdoor is one category we're focused on, pets, medical products and assisted living, and kind of tools and industrial and scientific products. So they're kind of the 4 verticals we like. And then just generally, like the criteria is obviously very flexible because every business is different, but I think 2 things which we've found to be very important. One is proven kind of product launch engine. So I think anyone that's developing a business, having a really robust pipeline that you can communicate to a buyer of what the future new product development pipeline looks like is super important. It's very important. And for a buyer like us, it gives a lot of confidence that we can continue to launch products and grow that business going forward. The second point is, if the brand has an audience, a following, and if the seller is able to cultivate that and demonstrate that there is some element of kind of brand awareness attached to it, that and community, that's also another thing that we like to see. So yeah, that's kind of at a high level where we sit.
Yeah, and so I second a lot of those things. Perch is more category agnostic. We have about 100 brands that spans many different categories, and will probably stay that way moving forward for the next year. We've definitely become more selective as multiples have climbed, and I think that something for us is that we really look at three specific things these days, is products that have, or brands that have utility patents. Like we want to kind of own that product, and we want to be differentiated. So that's one thing that we really like a big yes to. The second one is a differentiated supply chain. So one of our largest deals was for Web Deals Direct. It was a $120 million deal. And they had their own asset-based fulfillment operations. They had their own facilities. They had a 220,000 square foot warehouse in Corona, California, and that's been one of our hugest assets. We're actually kind of doubling down there and trying to grow our own asset-based fulfillment operation. And so that was a cornerstone, and we love things like that. And there are brands that have similar assets that we really seriously look at as part of the deal. And then I guess the third one is to kind of piggyback off of what Rob was saying was, yeah, if you have a following, you can see on Amazon, a lot of people think that there aren't real brands, it's products on Amazon, and that's just not true. We see branded search on a lot of our products that we've acquired and brands we've acquired. The best example is Baby Merlin. It's a magic sleep suit. Every time I bring it up, someone knows it. And most of our sales come from people directly searching those keywords, Baby Merlin, into Amazon. And we love that, and we're looking for more products that are like that. So, yeah.
Anything to add, or did the guys kind of cover all the parameters you look for in a brand?
Similar, a few things to add. We look for brands that are on the bigger side, $3 million in revenue a year or above, and we look at that concentrated across a few hero ASINs. We like to see ASINs that are number one in the BSR category they play in, a lot of reviews, really solid review count and quality, so 4.5 stars, 5 stars compared to their competitors in that space. And we also look at from the get-go, we're operators from day one. What can we do to really add value to grow that brand? We think about that before we even acquire the brand, right? So there's a lot of things that aggregators talk about in their playbooks that sound really good in theory, but it's really hard to execute, and you can't apply that for all brands. One example of that is going into international markets or going into a different channel. The Walmart customer, for example, is very different than the Amazon customer in a lot of categories, right? So we evaluate what value can we add in the areas that we're good at, including channel expansion, SEO, new product launch, and how can we really scale that business from what it was to what it could be.
This is a great segue, Christine. Thank you, because the next thing I really want to dive into is what you do with the brands once you acquire them. The premise of the aggregator model is essentially economies of scale, right? That you are going to be able to, by bringing all this together, optimize and scale the businesses to growth that they wouldn't be able to reach on their own. So I'd love to hear more about how you're doing that, particularly because you are operating in so many varied categories, which seems like it would kind of make that more challenging. Do you want to take that one first, Nathan?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the first thing is supply chain. And so I spoke about kind of signing that May 1 kind of carrier contract, and I think that's a huge thing. Scale savings, we're getting, many thousands of containers for a full in bulk with huge discounts. And it's not just the savings that come with scale, it's the ability to go to a carrier and say, I want space, I'm going to have space, make space for me. Because if you end up having to go onto the spot market, you're paying so much more and you might not even get space anyways. And so being assured that you are going to get the products when you need them, so that when Q4 hits, you're not out of stock, is huge, and that's been a big issue. The other thing is, I would say, having an asset-based fulfillment operation, so that Amazon really restricted our inventory limits last year in 2021. And so do you have a reliable 3PL, Or do you have your own space that you can own and kind of plan out and make sure that you're not getting out of stock and can send things into Amazon when you need to? So those, I mean, supply chain is one of the biggest ones. Something else that really excites me is, like affiliate marketing. We basically have relationships with some of the largest publishers in the space. And what's exciting is we have like a dashboard where they can go and they can see all of our deals at any given time. They can download like a Chrome extension that allows them to, when they're browsing Amazon and they're thinking of a listicle, right? You know, the top 5, whatever you want to call it, it will flag our products for them so that they can see, and they're getting a percentage of any product that, you know, any click that goes through. And so they're incentivized to do that. So if we're like the 3rd product that's listed, whereas they might have chosen the number 1, they see ours is flagged and they have the relationship with us. And so that's an exciting high growth area for us that has been driving a lot of sales. And then I think pricing is also really exciting. We just released last week kind of our algorithm V2 that's taking into account, we're really trying to hit price elasticity across all of our products, giving brand managers pricing recommendations twice a week, taking into account seasonality and things like that, trying to use data for us. And so rather than using our best thinking, we're trying to be data-driven and tech-driven from day one. And I think we're starting to see the payoff of that right now. So, yeah.
Anything to add, Bob?
Yeah, I think everyone's got their playbooks. I think every brand is very different depending on kind of the size and the life cycle and the category they're in and how well the previous owner had optimized that business. So the degree of the work we do changes. I think where we've had a lot of success in the last 12 months, obviously supply chain has been pretty tough. Channel expansion has been a very big lever for us, and we've had a lot of success expanding, particularly digital channels, and also even taking some of these Amazon brands D2C. Probably out of our 32 brands, 3 have done really well on D2C. I think one of the benefits of our model is because you have so many brands, you can test 5 to 6 of them. Maybe 3 don't work, but double down on the 3 that do. So that's been a big kind of lever to pull for us. And yeah, new product development's going strongly, affiliate marketing. I think for this year, the big push is trying to get some retail test orders for some of the brands, which I think, a lot of products on Amazon have big potential in retail, but it's a very different kind of business model and a different kind of market to play in. So,
I guess one thing I'm trying to understand is how much of it you are really dealing with each brand still individually, and how much of your model is trying to address challenges globally across your entire portfolio. It sounds like, for example, Rob, what you're doing is very differentiated by each brand. The more brands you get, the more complicated that becomes, though, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about how that happened, how you're going to continue that as the company grows?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the scale, our view of the scale benefits from the absolute sense of scale as in just being a big organization. Because we have capital, we can hire the best people. Scale by number of brands certainly doesn't help you in our view. That just actually adds a whole ton of complexity. So our view is to buy fewer businesses and really focus on trying to grow them individually. So that's kind of that's our strategy going forward. I think the way we structure the business, we have a brand manager who essentially becomes the CEO of each brand, and then we have centers of excellence, which performance marketing, SEO, affiliate, supply chain, that essentially help that brand manager to grow that brand. And obviously we've kept a lot of the teams on from the businesses that we've acquired, so they're still kind of operating relatively siloed with our support and resources to continue to drive growth.
Does that hold true for you, Christine, Nathan?
I would add that one important pillar that we have is building technology and infrastructure to automate some of the processes that we do. If you want to launch new products with each brand, right? Like the chances that you buy brands that are in the same category, probably not frequently, even if that's going to be intentional, right? So you're going to be playing to different categories and launching very different products. Getting the process that you do manually, that you have that expertise on automated, is immensely important to help you create that redundancy and control that scale. one of our executives, our chief product officer, he built an Amazon brand that was run almost entirely on algorithms, and his background is Google and Tesla. So we are very committed to growing, but also building the technology to make sure that we can scale sustainably and have it not just be hiring more and more, right? Because when you bring in a junior brand manager, they're not going to have the same depth of knowledge that a seller who's been building their baby for 3 to 5 years is going to have, right? They need a playbook and support and infrastructure to help them pick up those things that someone else that has that seasoned experience already knows in the back of their head.
Yeah, I would second that. Technology is going to be pivotal to being able to do this leanly and at scale. And I think, again, I'm going to be supply chain all day. I think when it comes to purchase orders, that is a really time-consuming process. Typically, when you're negotiating with the manufacturer and then sending it in, it's just a time-consuming process. And so we do that all on platform. We were able to do 260 purchase orders in April, which is up from 150 in Q4. And we're just trying to do as much of it as possible. I mean, the time savings is hours and hours per week that can just be done manually or automated, essentially. You put in the information you need and it's all done for you. And then visibility of the supply chain, similar idea, right? We want to be able to see as much as possible with as little time. So we have a team of 5 that does that for a portfolio of 5,000 products, which I think is remarkable. And we will continue to see, I think, time savings and cost savings on pricing, the communication between promotions, pricing, advertising, they all need to speak to each other. And so step 1 for us was visibility, just getting visibility of a remarkably complex organization. And now I think we're at the point where we're kind of tipping towards automation and starting to see exciting development. So we'll see. It's an investment, but I'm excited for it.
Well, I mean, the tone of this aggregator space has shifted pretty dramatically from 2 years, even a year ago. I mean, there was, I think in recent memory, it was kind of just buy. There was huge amounts of funding. We're now seeing that shift. We are seeing VCs pulling back, and this is not just in the aggregator space, across tech. We're seeing layoffs. There were some notable headlines just recently about some big aggregators going through layoffs, cutting back costs. As the nature of this business shifts, as your companies mature, what is the long-term strategy? What does your company look like 10 years from now?
Should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we want to become a digitally native CPG company of the sort. So our products in multiple channels, multiple countries, anywhere where the customer would want it, right? And the first step of that is making sure that we give our brands a true image. These products that we're buying, a lot of times they are a very differentiated product. I'm sure you guys as sellers know, it's very hard to maintain thousands, hundreds of thousands of reviews and that BSR position in such a competitive marketplace, right? So taking that, special sauce that you guys have already kind of created, making that apparent to customers, growing that brand, adding that value to the customer, and then expanding the portfolio to different products as a source of truth for customers that are looking to purchase in that category, and then growing it across multiple marketplaces too. EU is a focus of us, Canada, UK, and then also different channels as well in different countries.
Yeah, I would second all of that. To become kind of a digitally native CPG company, that kind of tech-enabled Procter & Gamble is a huge bet. But I think it's built for us on kind of what we're calling consumer-centric commerce, which is really taking, and both of my colleagues have kind of discussed product innovation, and I think that that is core to this, is being able to take the data that Amazon has with customer reviews, keyword trends, and innovating at scale, bringing that data as close to the customer as possible and launching new products consistently. And to do so with an agility that CPG just can't. That's the vision. And I think it will be built on product innovation. There will be these scale savings that we're discussing, but it really will be product innovation. And I'm glad that we're all kind of focusing on it right now. That's a big focus for us in 2022.
So do you also keep some of the brand team on then to power that innovation, or if not, where's that product innovation come from?
Yeah, so typically we have not kept the brand, in some of our largest acquisitions, we've kept the team in place. We're talking brands of 50 million plus in revenue. Typically for kind of smaller brands where it's just the founder, they will kind of take the money and go. However, like innovation is built by those entrepreneurs. They are the ones that have kind of the roadmap for new product launches and things like that. And so they are intimately involved in that they are still contributing those ideas and kind of making sure that we are kind of carrying them to fruition. But we now have a team that's really just solely focused on that. And in a big way, we have over 60 product launches that are going to happen this quarter, and hoping to double and triple that over the next several quarters. That goes beyond just product variation. Like variation is table stakes, right? Like it needs to be new products that the customers want, increased assortment and selection, and so that's where we're focused.
What about you, Rob? What does Elevate look like 10 years from now?
Yeah, we don't have a crystal ball. We're all very ambitious, but I think, we want to build a global business. We want to have a global footprint. I think we want to be leaders in the kind of the 4 verticals that we're kind of doubling down on now. We obviously want to have really robust portfolios in each of those verticals. I think we want to have global infrastructure, which might be 3PL facilities and really kind of competitive advantage in supply chain. I think we haven't ruled out potentially having our own manufacturing capability in certain verticals. That's something that's kind of being discussed now. So the business model has a lot of different routes it can take. We are kind of just focused one year forward, but our ambition is to take the business global, sell in many different channels, and have millions of raving fans for all our products kind of around the world. So.
I mean, a lot of another one of the headwinds happening right now is that we're seeing a little bit of a leveling off of the e-commerce boom that was precipitated by COVID, which did kind of coincide with the aggregator boom. So at the moment that a lot of this acquisition frenzy was happening, was also a moment when kind of e-commerce was at its peak. So the brands were their valuations were quite high. We're seeing that level out now as people head back into stores. I'm wondering what kind of impact you're seeing that on your business, your ability to grow, your kind of attitude around acquisition. I know we've said broadly it's slowing down, but how are you kind of dealing with these COVID ups and downs that have been really happening in tandem with the aggregator ups and downs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the COVID ups and downs are expected, right? During that year and a half, the money that typically people would have for experiences, they went to products, and that's not going to be the case anymore. Thankfully, the world has opened back up now. I think it comes with having a very clear plan and having every area of your organization be on the same page. Our business model as aggregators is a little bit more, how would I say this, like linear than some of the other companies. Growth goes straight into M&A, goes straight into diligence, goes straight into migration, and ultimately ends up with the brand management team managing, growing the brand and scaling it for hopefully an indefinite amount of time, right? So everyone has to be on the same page in terms of like what we are looking at and how we can really grow this brand. And when we're bringing over a brand through diligence, our team is very well versed in terms of like high level brand growth tactics. And we present a plan very early on. So this is the financials I think we're going to do this year, next year, into 5 years. And you build that by looking at pre-COVID market and performance, how your market share for this particular seller has grown, how the total market has grown. In general, with the same assortment of products, do you think you'll grow year over year, pre-COVID, post-COVID? Probably not, unless you apply the strategies that aggregators are supposed to be here for, that SEO strategy, content overhaul, branding, PPC, complete brand overhaul and launching new products. And that's going to be what gets that growth. So as long as the top of the funnel understands, this is what I can do with the brand, then you're purchasing the brand at an appropriate multiple. And that's how we've been kind of handling the situation.
Yeah, I was chatting with Rob prior to this, and we were laughing at, Q1 comps were not just COVID comps. They were also the stimulus checks, right? Where they were getting spent on Amazon. We did when I first joined Perch, we did an article with Forbes where we looked at consumer survey data prior to those checks being cut, and then afterwards looking at our portfolio, and that money was getting spent on Amazon. It's really fascinating. Thankfully, we took a relatively conservative approach, as conservative as you can, getting to 100 brands in under 2 years. But we have normalizations, right? Like that account for some of what we believe to be atypical sales, right? And trying to predict where we will be and then pay out kind of multiples on that number, right? But yeah, multiples have normalized. We've had winners and we've had losers over the last year, and it's been really hard. I described Perch a little bit like an anaconda that swallowed a baby hippo, right? And it's just lying there trying to digest it, right? And so we've been in the digestion phase for a while. And thankfully, that caused us to kind of pause acquisitions for a while to do that digestion process. And we're still evaluating businesses, and we'll take 40 calls a week. But we have to be able to operate them. And it's still not proven that aggregators have been able to operate. The news about Thrasio obviously is troubling, I think. But people that have taken a conservative approach, I think everyone on this panel has, will be able to be winners long term. I think there are huge opportunities now that there are kind of distressed assets out there. Aggregators are now purchasing other aggregators. I think that's a really interesting opportunity and will continue to be so.
Yeah, I think COVID was really tough to buy businesses because the question we're always asking ourselves was revenue through those periods sustainable, or was it the COVID bump? A lot of that's starting to unwind. I think May this year will probably be the first clean comp where there's no real COVID impacts through Amazon in our view. So that makes it a bit easier. I think, the space, there will be consolidation in the space. We were super disciplined where we went very slowly. We didn't think it was a winner-takes-all market, so we were very conservative about an M&A approach, and our brands are performing quite well. I think keyword volume on Amazon just overall we think is about 20% down kind of year on year in kind of March. So key to our growth going forward is obviously diversifying off Amazon, diversifying to other Amazon marketplaces, selling on Shopify, getting into retail, optimizing conversion, traffic. And we've been really good at that. So it's that allows the brands to grow, but it is tough out there. But I think probably May going forward, the comps are going to get a lot easier with some of that COVID impact kind of washing through. So.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. I think safe to say no matter what happens, it's going to be exciting. I look forward to watching what you all do with your companies in the coming years. That is a wrap now on the conference, but it's not a wrap on the expo. I hope you all will join us down there and hang out with us for a little longer and check that all out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Retail Remix. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on your favorite podcast player. Until next time, keep mixing it up.